Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us. This is Left Bank Books, Majors and Quinn, and Porter Square Books welcome New York Times best-selling author of I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, Erika L. Sanchez, who will discuss her new memoir, Crying in the Bathroom. Sanchez tonight will be in conversation with award-winning best-selling author Jason Reynolds. Left Bank Books is St. Louis's oldest independent bookstore. We are so happy to be producing tonight's event on behalf of the 3 bookstores involved. We would like to thank those other bookstores, Majors and Quinn and Porter Square Books, for joining us for tonight's event. We want to thank all of the supporters of the stores combined, these supporters of Erika and Jason, and everyone for their outpouring of love for our bookstores. The stores do offer in-store shopping, curbside pickup, and delivery to anywhere in the country. I know that we are happy to be able to bring our event series virtual. We believe that events are a way to expand your mind and bring in new thoughts to make the world a better place. I hope that you enjoy this event, and I hope that you support these bookstores by purchasing a copy for you or for your friends. Our website is left-bank.com. Be sure to also check out Majors and Quinn and Porter Square Books. And purchasing a copy of the book from one of these bookstores allows us to keep our bookstores open, allows us to pay our staff, and it allows us to continue bringing you incredible authors such as Erika and Jason. So thank you so much for your support. I am Shane Mullen. I am the events coordinator for Left Bank Books, and we are happy to be producing tonight's event. But now, about tonight's book, Crying in the Bathroom. America Ferrera, who I love, the Emmy Award-winning actress in Ugly Betty, says, equal parts pee your pants hilarity and break your heart poignancy, like the perfect brunch date you never want to end. Growing up as the daughter of Mexican immigrants in Chicago in the 90s, Erika Sanchez was a self-described pariah, misfit, and disappointment. A foul-mouthed, melancholic rabble-rouser who painted her nails black but also loved comedy, often laughing so hard with her friends that she had to leave her school classroom. 25 years later, she's now an award-winning novelist, poet, and essayist, but she's still got an irrepressible laugh, an acerbic wit, and singular powers of perception about the world around her. In these essays, Sanchez writes about everything from sex to white feminism to debilitating depression, revealing an interior life rich with ideas, self-awareness, and perception. Raunchy, insightful, unapologetic, and brutally honest, Crying in the Bathroom is Sanchez at her best. A book that will make you feel that post-confessional high that comes from talking for hours with your best friend. Rebecca Mackay, the Pulitzer finalist for The Great Believers, says Crying in the Bathroom is deeply personal in the best sense. Honest, cutting, hilarious, revelatory, these essays strike deep chords for any of us who came of age in the 90s, or really, for anyone who came of age at all. I love Rebecca. And of course, Jason Reynolds, I do have to share his blurb as well. After reading Crying in the Bathroom, Erika L. Sanchez has undoubtedly cemented herself as not just one of my favorite writers, but also as my best friend in my mind. Because who wouldn't I want to be close to? Because why wouldn't I want to be close to someone so intentional, so funny, so proven, and most importantly, so self-aware that they could tell a story about their life in a way that makes me take inventory of my own. To put it simply, which I'm not sure is actually possible, this is a whoopee cushion, a gut punch, and an alarm clock of a book. And I agree with all of those. I don't have better words than they do, but I do highly recommend that you pick up this book if you have not already. Now about tonight's speakers. Erika L. Sanchez is a Mexican-American poet, novelist, and essayist. Her debut poetry collection, Lessons on Expulsion, was published by Graywolf in July 2017 and was a finalist for the PEN America Open Book Award. Her debut young adult novel, I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, published in October 2017 by Knopf Books for young readers, was a New York Times bestseller and a National Book Awards finalist. It is now being made into a film directed by America Ferrera. Sanchez was a 2017-2019 Princeton Arts Fellow, a 2018 recipient of the 21st Century Award from the Chicago Public Library Foundation, and a 2019 recipient of the National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship. Jason Reynolds is joining us this evening as the conversation partner. Jason Reynolds is an award-winning and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Reynolds' many books include Miles Morales, Spider-Man, the Track series, Ghost, Patina, Sunny, and Lou, Long Way Down, which received a Newbery Honor, a Prince Honor, and a Coretta Scott King Honor, and Look Both Ways, which was a National Book Award finalist. His latest book, Stamped, Racism, Anti-Racism, and You, is a collaboration with Ibram X. Kendi. Reynolds is the 2020-2021 National Ambassador for Young People's Literature and has appeared on The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Late Night with Seth Meyers, and CBS This Morning. He is on the faculty of the MFA and Creative Writing program at Lesley University and lives in Washington, D.C. You can find his ramblings at jasonwritesbooks.com. And now, I am so excited to have all of you here with us, and would you please help me in warmly welcoming our fantastic guests wherever you are. I want to hear applause where I am. So here is Erika L. Sanchez and Jason Reynolds. Hello.
I'll do the clapping. Oh, man. Thank you for that introduction.
Thank you.
Hi, Erika.
Yeah. What? Hi. It's so nice to see you.
It is. It's good to see you.
I'm so grateful for you today. Thank you for doing this and asking me all sorts of fun questions.
It's whatever. It's good. It's good. It's funny. I was sitting here this morning. Actually, your homegirl just left, by the way. Kimon was over here a second ago. And
I love her.
She lives down the street, so she's always here annoying me. But she was like, "Oh, say what's up." So I say, "Hey." I'm like, all right, I'll tell her. But I was thinking this
lovely.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking this morning. Do you remember I bumped into you at a festival, like a conference, and we were somewhere in the lobby of a hotel, and there was a bunch of people everywhere, and you were a little bit nervous. I think I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter came out, and you were dealing with that stuff, and like that was happening, and everybody's buzzing. And I was like, "Yo, how you feeling? You working? What's new? What's happening?" And you were a little like, "I don't know." And I was like, "Yo, like don't trip, because your name is your name." And it's something that I remember so vividly, and that I find.
I think I remember when.
Yeah, and I find it so ironic that the next thing you would produce is literally, about your name being your name. Is really about sort of like your story. There's this beautiful memoir that gutted me and made me laugh and reminded me why I don't know if I have the courage to write a memoir. All jokes aside,
I think you do.
I don't know. And I've been in conversation all week with memoirists. Like this is the third one this week. Yesterday I had D. Watkins, and before that,
my God.
Yeah. And then the day before that, I was with Isaac Fitzgerald. And all of you are so honest.
God.
Yeah, it was crazy. And so all of you are so honest. And I guess my first question, and really something I asked all of them, and I'm just curious, is that was there any moment that you were just like, is this a good idea? Right? Like, did you?
I did have those moments. Yeah. I did. And I remember that moment that you described. It's all kind of blurry to me because of the state that I was in, and it was when I was struggling with my depression. And so you were so like warm, and I just like couldn't accept it because I was like just trying to stay alive, And so I think it was Tucson, in fact. I remember that in Tucson I was that okay. And yeah, I think it's really excruciating to write about such things, that kind of despair, that kind of depression. But for me, it felt really necessary because it was something that was so true of my life, I don't care so much about looking good or flattering or, being nice, or in Spanish we call it quedando bien, like just trying to please everybody. I've already had so much experience like displeasing the people in my life that for me this was just it just didn't matter. Like it didn't. I thought about how people would feel reading about my vagina. That's for sure. I was like, whoa, I'm starting off with that, but to me that felt sincere. That felt true. If it was like it was about my body, and it was about being a woman and being told that your body's disgusting or that you're not in charge of it, and so I wanted to reclaim that and um, you know talk about our bodies and our sexuality in a way that is really honest, because there's so much I didn't know growing up. You know what I'm saying? Like I wish someone would have given me some game, like an older aunt or some shit like that, but I just didn't have that. So this book I hope helps young women, try to figure out their own life.
Yeah. I was going to ask. I was like, man, you start off with like STDs. Like, let's get right into it, right? You're like, let's begin with
It wasn't an STD
but it,
though.
but
It
it
turns
wasn't an
out it
STD,
wasn't.
right? But it
It
wasn't an
wasn't.
STD. That was your fear, right? Your fear.
Yeah. I was like, oh, I'm a dirty whore, like it scared me. Growing up Catholic, it's like that's the worst thing you can do. So yeah, I'm over all that shame. I won't have it. I'm
I
done
think
with
that's
it.
the
I've
best
had a
part.
lot of therapy.
Yo, shout out to therapy. I hear you, and I think that's like the most beautiful part of the book. I
Mhm.
think I think
Yes.
to me the book feels like sort of a like a shame repellent, right? It's like this thing that's it's like we get to stand here and look at a woman naked and unafraid. And as somebody who gets to live in the world with the privilege of a man, it was humbling for me, and it was inspiring in ways that I'm not sure I'll be able to articulate in this moment. But just in terms of like, wow, I like, do I have could I do it? Could I really tell? Could I tell it as a way? Could I tell it because I'm fortified enough to tell it? Could I tell it as a way to empower myself and the reader that might pick it up? Could I tell it? Could I tell it in spite of, as my mother would say, right? We have our public lives, our private lives, and our secret lives. Could I tell it in spite of the fact that people may have a window into my secret life that does exist and that is very different from my public persona? Right. And I think it's
Mhm.
just one of
Mhm.
these days,
Yeah.
I'm telling everybody listening, one of these days I'm gonna turn a corner and wild out, and people gonna really know where and when it happens, blame it on Erika L. Sanchez. That's who you blame it. Erika Sanchez.
Oh shit.
That's
I mean, I have your back. Just let me know.
it's gonna happen. Let's talk a little bit. I know your first love, your first discipline is poetry. I came up in a similar way. We have tons of mutual friends and community who uses that particular medium as lifeblood. My question to you is why. First of all, before we even get in it, I mean, we talked about the like why memoir, but like why poetry? What is poetry to you? Because I think this is something that I really want to talk about in relationship to the prose that you write. Like, why
Mhm.
poetry? What is that thing? What is that for you?
Yeah. Oh God, I love this question. And for me, it's a very complicated answer, but uh, I will say that poetry is spiritual for me. It's not like um it's not a hobby. It's not something that makes me feel nice. It makes me feel like I'm like close to God, that I'm transcending, that I am the most alive because of the precision of language, the beauty of the language, the images. That to me, it just does something that I can't even really explain. I feel it throughout my body. And I think a lot of poets will tell you that it's a visceral sort of feeling. And when the first time you encounter poetry, they're just like shaken in some form. And so for me, it's about like the beauty of the world. It's about making sense, or trying to attempting, it's never going to make sense, but attempting to like come to terms with something, exploring different facets of yourself and the other, and understanding how we're all interrelated, and how we're holy in our bodies, we are holy, which I think we often forget. And so for me, it's just a beautiful essential thing to my life, and it makes writing the prose that I write possible, because otherwise I don't think that I would pay attention to language in the same way that I do, because of this like deep love and also study of poetry.
Yeah, I always think of poetry as like spell casting, like
Yeah.
it's a different thing. It's something that I
Mhm.
I think the poet, those of us who take it seriously, I think the poet knows the weight of the word, right? It's like
Mhm.
I know that this is nothing to play around with.
Right, yeah, it's beautiful, it's sacred, yeah.
It's sacred. It's sacred,
Mhm.
and it's nice when I'm around other poets, especially when I read poets who are writing prose. Uh, I always know, one, because I think we're the best, right? I'm
Mm,
like, we're the
yeah,
best. We're the
I
best of the
agree.
lot. I'm here to break it to everybody watching.
It's
This
true.
is as good as it gets, right?
Yeah, you gotta read poems, you gotta write poems.
Yo, that's it. And I think that like those of us who've been able to also sort of bend our that particular skill set into longer form, I mean, I look at what Ocean did. I look at
Mhm.
Jasmine, who
Oh
is a
my god,
poet, right?
she's so amazing.
Right, and I mean, I look at our buddy Kimon. I mean, there are all these people that I could name, like the Candace Elos of the world, and Jacqueline Woodson, and like these are
Mhm,
all people
mhm,
who started as poets and who sort of expanded because I think they understand how language actually functions, right? How these words actually function, and how they have true and living effects on the mind and the spirit and the body, right? And like,
mhm.
and which makes poets very dangerous, right?
Oh god. Are we? Hmm.
We are. But also,
We can be. I mean, poetry has, like, started revolutions, you know?
exactly. And I think also though we perhaps might be the most human amongst us, right? Because typically one might be the most honest because you're really just sitting with yourself, whittling and distilling until you can find that the actual thing, like what is the heart of the matter, right? What is the
Right.
matter? And I guess my question to you is just that, right? Is there like one, do you believe there is a way that a person in any of the literary mediums can write something and not be changed? The writer can write something and not be changed. And two, how were you changed in the making of this particular memoir?
I
If you
think
believe that it's actually transformational.
oh, it's been completely transformational. I'm, like, a different person, and in some ways, I don't even recognize myself, because in the act of writing the book, I I healed so many traumas, I made sense of so many different failures and exes, and I like found meaning in so much of the suffering that I experienced. And
Mm,
so I feel like I understand myself better. I understand the world better. I am a lot more confident also knowing like who I am exactly, um and and also I became even more bold than I was, because in writing it, I just I decided I'm gonna be as vulnerable as I need to be. And I didn't write about everything. I mean, there's way more that I did not include. Uh, there could be like 3 volumes or more. But I felt that it wasn't so much that I was burying myself, it was that I was like building a relationship with the reader. Like I wanted the reader to be close, and I wanted to tell the truth despite of the way that it might make me look. Um, to me, it was just like this quest for the truth, and I don't know. In doing so, I became a lot scarier in my spirit, I suppose, and also having a baby made me a little bit scarier, because now I'm just like ready to protect my child, of course, and then I feel like I know so much about the world that I didn't know before, and I'm just I don't know. I'm really angry. I'm grateful. I'm a lot of things,
Sure.
right now. The world is really terrifying, but also my family is very beautiful. It's just, holding those two opposites at the same time, something that I learned also in therapy. Um, but yeah, I could go on and on. But yeah, I do think that people must be changed by the books that they write.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of therapy, speaking of this sort of strange dichotomy of our lives, right? And the contradiction of our lives, the irony of our lives, right? Because it's always that weird, it's always like, oh yeah, over here is a shit bag, and over here is like heaven on earth, right?
Mhm.
Simultaneously, we're like juggling these things. And I think in the book, my favorite of all the chapters is probably the chapter about your sense of humor. Um,
Mm.
because for a few reasons. Number one, I think Memoir. I was talking to one of my buddies over this week who actually I was talking to D Watkins, and he was saying how yesterday he was saying how, yeah, man, there was these other things I wanted to put in Memoir, but like they were like good things, and nobody wants to read that.
That's true.
Right. Right. He was like, I felt like that just wasn't interesting enough. But you really have a whole chapter, and I don't want to. I think it is an oversimplification to say it's just about your sense of humor. Obviously, right? Like I think
Sure,
there are
yeah.
many layers to what this is about.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it is a powerful experience to read about a person for you to sort of go into like your laugh and your laughter and your proclivity toward that and your sense of humor, which can be wry and a little dark and right, like all these sorts of things that I
Yeah.
found hilarious and also refreshing to read in a memoir because it felt like it felt like ballet. It felt like, oh, this person is alive though. Right? Like,
Mhm.
yes, there are these things happening. Yes, there are insecurities. There's mental illness. There's sort of like dealing with sexuality. There's dealing with culture. There's dealing with like all of these things. And yet there's this human element. Like when we strip everything away, all the details, I'm still just a person. And there's an involuntary thing that we all have to do, right? We have to cry. We have to sort of use the restroom, right? And then there's this
Mhm.
other thing that we all do, right? Which is we all hopefully, right?
Yeah.
We all laugh. Can you just talk about that a bit? I just thought it was beautiful and brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah, I think a lot about comedy, because it's something that I fell in love with when I was quite young, at around the same time, as poetry. I just realized that right now. And, I was always searching for the absurdity in in the world because I felt like what was around me, it just none of it made sense. I felt like so confused all the time. And so for me, comedy was a way to like get relief from that sort of anxiety. And also it became a weapon, as a girl, as a young brown girl, it's so easy to get pushed around. And so for me, comedy became the way that I protected myself, and it was like, you know, the uh, when kids would make fun of me, I would dish it right back, and also in my family, there was this like banter, this never ending banter that I find really uplifting, and it makes life a little more bearable to understand like how silly some things are. And so yeah, I became really interested in Richard Pryor and George Carlin, and You know, now I really love, I just saw John Mulaney, who was amazing, and they all have, I think, all comedians have this in common, that they just pay attention. They pay attention so closely, and poets too. We pay attention, and so um, I don't know. Comedy for me also is a spiritual sort of element, where it's about survival. It's about like um, feeling joy despite, you know, the rest of the world hating my guts because I'm brown and because my family's from Mexico, etc. And so yeah, it became a defense mechanism, and then I think it just became a weapon, and then now it's just who I am. I don't even know how to, like, separate that. I have to joke about even the most serious things, because otherwise I feel like I'm going to be consumed by it
Right,
all.
right. I think it was so cool to read. I mean, I have uh a few Mexican American friends, and we all laugh about how Black folk and brown folk are so similar in so many ways,
Mhm.
right? Our family dynamics and our like pretty much like we're pretty like it's so many parallels for many many reasons. And I was, you know, that part it
Yeah,
was
for
so
sure, and I married one too.
yeah.
A comedian. I'm sorry, you paused. I don't know what happened. You were saying.
No, no, I was
No,
saying
go
like
ahead.
the parallels are so incredible that when I was reading the book, you know, you hear that phrase, laugh to keep from crying, you know, um, which is something that
Mhm.
so many of us throw around. And but over time it becomes like laugh to keep from crying, but also like laughter is filling the well, right? Like though the well is
Yeah, yeah,
empty,
of course.
right? Though the well is empty, laughter is a thing that like
Yeah.
I can fill my own well through this laughter. You know what I mean? And it's just
Right, right. Yeah, and being in community with people who have, like, a similar sensibility for me is so amazing. That's why I love hanging out with poets and writers and comedians, because they are so alive. And you know, my husband was a comedian for a very long time, and he gave it up to be a good dad, which I find very charming. But he like came into my life, and I was stunned by how much I could laugh, and how laughter can be a part of my life every day. I didn't really understand that that was a possibility, and so I feel very grateful to have so many different people who have this sensibility surrounding me all the time. It's great.
do you this is a loaded question, it's a big one. Do you feel free?
Oh man, damn, dude. Okay. Yes and no. I feel free in many ways. I was actually just thinking this very thought earlier today, so that's funny that you asked. I feel free in that I I I feel in control of my life, and that I have a lot of different kinds of power, not like power over people, but power in that I can make change. And so that feels really incredible, and I'm always very grateful for that. But I don't feel free because um, there are so many people who don't have choices, you know, in this country, and so that really disturbs me. The reversal of Roe v. Wade, for instance. I mean, I felt like I was in the twilight zone. I didn't even realize that was a possibility, and so that makes me feel that um, you know, if we're not all free, like I'm not free, you know, and so it's hard to really feel really good about all of my agency when there's, you know, multitudes of people who are struggling, and you know, people are still incarcerated, and it goes on and on. It's just like this tangle of things, like we were talking about, like our lives being good in so many different ways, and then we, you know, look outside and there are so many different forms of violence
Yeah.
headed our way. And so how do we reconcile that? How do we enjoy what there is to enjoy when people are suffering so much. So I don't have a neat answer for you. I'm sorry.
I mean, that feels fair. I mean, I'm only asking because I'm interested to hear how people are processing their lives, right? I don't know if there's an answer. I just, I'm just curious on how
Sure,
people
sure.
are processing the world in which we live today. These are questions that I'm asking myself as well, right? Am I free? Well, I live a life that
Mm-hmm.
feels free, right? And
Mm-hmm.
perhaps therein lies the trap, right? Right, right.
Right. It's so tenuous. Like it's not guaranteed. That's for fucking sure. We've learned
Exactly,
that from
exactly.
American history.
Yo, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I want to move a little bit into another thing that I think often about. Um, check my notes here, and it's basically about bodies. I am fascinated by the way that we communicate and relate to our bodies. I remember when Ta-Nehisi's book came out and he started to refer to like the black body, right? It was this sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I know all of my homegirls are always talking about sort of their experiences living in their bodies. You know what I mean? What that means for them in terms of their relationship to men and men's projection onto those bodies, what it means when it comes to whiteness, patriarchy, and all of that stuff as it pertains to those bodies. And you talk a lot about your relationship with this body that you live in, your journey to loving it, right? Your admission to even being, and I, by the way, I really respected this, your admission to even falling victim to some of the bullshit that we get sort of like sold, right? Where it's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
and even having enough courage, which I would just want to be honest with you, that I'm so grateful for, because I rarely hear people talk about this, with like colorism within the Mexican community, or within all of our communities for that matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I never hear people really, black folk talk about it. I hear a few Asian cats talk about it, but like the word Indio, my Dominican friends be saying this, and like we talk about it like briefly, like, oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, don't worry about it though. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's not really a big deal. I'm like, I don't know, man, because because I kind of feel like
Kind of is.
it feels a little racist. I don't know. I just
Yeah. No, actually speaking of the Dominican Republic, I studied abroad there when I was 19, and I had never been um in an environment in which racism was so, and colorism was so overt. There was no hiding it. There was no politeness. And so I started thinking so much about it. I think then during that study abroad experience, because I would see Haitian people being like mistreated horribly on the street, and I just I didn't know the history of it, of course, and so I wanted to know, like, where does this come from? This is bananas. And so I also wanted to talk about the colorism in my culture, because it's really deep, and it comes from colonialism. And if we can't name it, then how are we going to change it? How can we get rid of it? And ever since I was young, I heard all of these like horribly racist stereotypes growing up, about Black people or others. And so I I refused. I mean, sometimes I did digest some of that, and then essentially I refused to believe the lie that is whiteness, that whiteness is superior. But that took so much like intellectualizing, and like really confronting a lot of my biases that I had. And so um that interrogation is not fun. So I could understand why a lot of people would just pretend it's not a problem, but it really is.
it really, really is. And you really tackle it in such a brilliant way. The other thing that you go into that I was also so intrigued by, because it's the antithesis of so much that we're talking about these days, is your femininity,
Mm, mhm.
which It's fascinating to me because we live in a time where like we're having really complicated conversations around all these things, right? Which is a good and healthy thing. But it almost feels like masculinity and femininity are bad words, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I know that they're not. I know that it's far more complex than that, but it does
Sure.
feel that. But because we live in a tweetable world,
Yes.
right?
Oh, Twitter.
There's not a lot of space for wrestling anymore, right? And so
Nuance.
in the book, you give us a moment where we get to see you sort of being like, yo, actually, I I love, perhaps I'm a bad feminist, right? Or at least
Yeah.
I'm not that, right? And can you just talk a bit of, I was like, wow, this is honest, you know?
Yeah, thank you. I feel like it's really easy to fall into binaries even when we're trying to break out of them. And
Mm,
so, I don't see femininity as anything that is negative or weak like many other people do. I and it's not just for women. Men can be feminine and
exactly.
like revel in that
Thank
part of
God for my
themselves.
feminine bits. Thank God for my feminine bits, right?
I know. I mean, I think it's beautiful when a man could like embody all of that. Also being masculine isn't negative either. I like masculinity. I like it when um, you know, I like my husband, he's very bearded and burly and rough, but also like the softest, kindest soul in the whole world. And so like we don't have to pick and choose, or we get to pick and choose. We don't have to decide on one or the other. Like, I'm gonna be this way, I'm gonna be that way. It We're human, we're complicated, we're weird. Um, I don't feel like we should be limited like that. But yeah, Twitter is a hellhole, and I've really had a hard time there in the past because people take things really out of context, and
Yep.
and so like I would never tweet about this because it's too complicated, it's too
Mhm.
nuanced, and it's something that I feel like I need to have a conversation about rather than tweet about.
I thought it was
Yeah.
and I know we have to go to questions. I got you, Shane. But I thought I brought it up just because I also thought it was such an affirming part of the story, right? It was like you using femininity as a way to affirm your own sort of self-confidence in that particular juncture of your life, right? Like,
Yeah,
which is a powerful, which would then make femininity a superpower. It's a beautiful, it's
it
a wonderful thing, you
it
know?
can be,
It
yeah. I
can be.
mean, it's something that I think women need to own if that's who they are. Like, if you want to be feminine, it's okay. I mean, I love flowers. I love pink. I love lipstick. I don't even see why that has anything to do with me being a feminist. Like it seems irrelevant, but some people seem to think that it's incompatible.
And they're gonna tweet about it at any
Yeah,
moment.
they could tweet to me right now if they feel like it.
For this has been so fantastic, and just hearing the two of you discuss incredible books and incredible like life theory is amazing, and I'm so happy that we have an audience here with us. And I want to remind the audience that if you do have any questions, be sure to type them up in the comment section. I will get us started with an audience question. um, I'm trying to decide between which two, but we'll probably have time for both. I don't know. I want to start with how do each of you choose the form? So, especially while I was reading your book, Erika, I was so moved by this particular like form of writing in the essay, in the humor essay, and the so raw personal essay. And P.S. You're writing, you're the language when
Oh,
Jason said
thank
like,
you.
whew,
Poetry, man.
yeah, yeah. So I want to know when or how, what in what part of the process, especially with this book, and for you, Jason, as well. When did you know that this was going to be the content of a memoir instead of using some of the themes from this book as poetry, as young adult literature?
Yeah. I didn't know that I would ever write such a thing. Honestly, it never occurred to me before I actually started writing it. And what happened was I was right, it was in the fall of 2015. I had just found out that Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter was going to be published. And so I needed a new project because that's how I think. I'm like, okay, now what am I going to do? I'm Mexican like that. I'm always working hard. So I felt like, let me see what occurs to me. But what happened was that someone asked me to write an essay for an anthology about ambition, women and ambition. And that became the title essay, Crying in the Bathroom. And writing that was really, really hard because I had to address a lot of things that I hadn't really looked at. And so as I was writing, I felt like this release. It felt like a sort of purge, a catharsis, and I liked it. I liked that sort of painful, pleasurable ache, and I started to just keep writing essays about things that I felt were really important, and so that's how it came to be.
I never really know. I mean, just kind of right into the thing. Whatever. Like what? It's hard for me because I'm the most inefficient writer ever
You're very prolific for being inefficient.
because I don't have a life. So I literally am like, I'm inefficient. It takes me forever, but I just work nonstop all the time. So it seems like a lot, but it's like I never really know what I'm doing. I sort of am one of those people who chisel at the stone until
Mhm.
it recognizes something in it, right? I don't really know what's happening. I just kind of write into the thing until it starts to make sense and something until it becomes something that seems to have a little form. And then I kind of usually start all over and do what I'm right because I can see it. So then I start over and I make it what I need it to be. Which is so ridiculous. I should just outline and ideate and do all this, but it
For
just
what? That's not how you work. It's working for you, what you're doing.
it's working for me creatively. It's doing terrible things to me mentally, right?
Yeah, okay.
Right. So there's that because
That's
there's that
another
thing,
thing.
right? There's that thing we talk about.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
I'm like that too. I'm all over the place. I don't really follow any sort of regimen or routine. I just do what I feel like doing, and I feel like the game chooses me. I don't know. Like I don't even have a say in it
you
almost.
like it's the dope game. Like you like, like you're like I ain't choose the game. The game chose me. You know.
I do want to apologize to the audience and also both of you. I mentioned ahead of the event that it had been like so long since we've been like Zoom bombed or whatever, and it is happening right now. So I'm blocking as fast as I can, but we've had a couple of comments.
Oh,
And just
I want to see them. I'm very curious.
I have blocked
Click on
them, so you
comment.
can't see them. Yeah.
Okay.
It says naked HD. Yes.
Yeah. So don't click on anything, audience. If you are seeing that, don't. That's probably
Don't
not where you
click
wanna
it,
go.
audience.
Wow.
Yeah.
How spicy.
I know. It's you get the honor of having some
That's it.
wild things in the comments. Yeah.
I wonder what triggered it. What did we say? It's like you mentioned femininity, and it's like I've got something for you, right? It's like Jesus.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Terrible.
Maybe they'll take to Twitter or something.
Yeah.
Let me have it.
All right. So you are both like professors and you teach people and you give people advice. And so I have a two-pronged question. One, what is your like most common go-to advice for young authors, since you both also deal with young authors? Two, what was the advice that you got as you were coming up that you feel you were so happy that you ignored?
Mm.
Oh, I mean, what I tell my students is to read as much as possible. I think that is the key. I've had a few in the past that have said they don't like to read, but they are writers, and I find that very troubling. And so I insist and insist that you have to love reading and you have to love the act of writing. Otherwise, there's really no point in it, and it's a hard career, so you better enjoy it. Just like the actual writing, not all the accolades. You gotta like really enjoy putting sentences together if that's what you want to dedicate your life to.
Yeah, some of our favorites have no accolades. Some of the best have no accolades.
It's true.
Um, the best piece of advice I've ever gotten and the worst piece of advice I've ever gotten are the same piece of advice, and
Mm.
they came from a legend, the great Walter Dean Myers, who who made a space for me, and he told me maybe a year before he died, he said, "Look, man," he said, "How much are you writing?" I said, "I write 2.5 pages in the morning, and I write 2.5 pages at night," because I was working at a retail store during the day. I was 26 years old or something like that. And he was like, "All right, that's 5 pages a day. If you do that 5 days a week, that's 100 pages a month. That's 300 pages every 3 months, which is about a book. That means you can write about 4 books a year. And if you do that, then no one will really, then you'll write more books than they'll ever be able to publish, and no one will be able to close the door on you." Now, the truth is that like I took this advice to heart and I did that, and it forged my career, right? But also, it's the most unsustainable, unhealthy way to do this. Um, both of those things were true, right? He was right and he was wrong. He
Oh
left out,
wow.
he left out the other part of it. The messed up part is that I gave that advice to a lot of young writers coming in the game when I got in the game, and it almost killed some people, right? It put some people in a real bad way, and that I then had
Mm.
to apologize and like retract my statements and rearrange sort of the way I thought about all of this. And all of that's rooted in fear and supremacy and all the same things that we're talking about, right? That fear of being shut out, that your voice would be muzzled. That's what causes a person to work like this, which is a more complicated conversation.
Yes, trauma.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
But that is sort of the advice that I've given, that I wish I had not given, that was given to me, that made me who I am, and that also was given to me and made me who I am in other ways. Uh,
Well, it's beautiful that you can really acknowledge both things and that you're able to say, maybe I was wrong. You know, so many people are incapable of such things.
yeah, my therapist has been, and now I'm trying to undo it. Oh, Erica, it's
Mhm.
so hard for me to take a break. Oh,
Yeah.
it's
Why
tough.
you feel like, you know, you're gonna become bankrupt or something? Because that's how I feel.
Some of it, and I don't really, you know what? That's not that was the fear for years, not so much these days, but I feel like it's the whole Michael Jackson thing, right? He would always say, when I get a song inspiration, I have to get up and make the song immediately because I'm scared God's gonna give it to Prince, right? It's this idea that like, what if it goes away?
Yeah, yeah, no,
Weird.
I understand that. But also, you just have to think about resting as part of your creative process. That's what I think.
I think that's true. I think you're right,
Yeah.
and
Like
I'm
go get a
trying.
massage, you
Yeah, I'm
know?
gonna get one next week. Can't wait.
There you go. Beautiful.
I'm working on it.
Yeah. Since you did bring up kind of escaping and relaxing and taking care of our mental health, uh, Erica, what are some of the things that you like to do for? Because I do love a very good massage, and
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. If I could get one every day, I would, but that isn't very practical. I go to the park a lot and I just walk and look at the trees and try not to ever look at my phone. I try to disconnect from all of the screens, and I love playing with my daughter. She's just incredibly funny and has such a personality that like just the time flies by. And I like to cook. I'm really a pretty good cook. I like to cook Mexican food, and Also, I am taking a vacation soon. My husband and I are taking a very, very belated honeymoon in Merida, Mexico. So I'm not going
Nice.
to do any work there. It's going to
That's
be great. Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you.
Thank you.
I ain't
Jason.
taking a vacation sometime soon. I want to, but I ain't. No time
Just
soon.
go somewhere by yourself, dude. It's great. Just go.
It's my favorite thing. I'm an Arizona guy, so like I usually go out to the desert. Something
Really?
twice a year. I go to the desert, then I drive from Tucson to LA for the 5.5 hours of just open road. That's like my centering point. I do that twice
That's really
a year.
cool.
Yeah, so I'll do it at some point this year. I just I
Mhm.
gotta take care of some things first. But you know, I make time to lay on the couch. You know, it feels good to lay on the couch.
Oh yeah, I love laying on the couch and I love watching really trashy TV.
Yeah,
I'm not even
I've
gonna
been
lie.
watching Alone. Have you seen Alone? I've been watching Alone. Which are these
No.
people who are like trapped on an island. It's like a reality show, and it's like survivalism. It's insane. I've never seen. It's wild, right? And guess
Should I
what?
watch it?
You should watch it. But I'll tell you what's funny is that you're never gonna see Black or brown people on there. It's the
No,
most
we don't want to
thing
do
on there.
that shit.
We're just not doing it. It's not, we're not interested.
Naked and Afraid. They had
Hard enough to survive in real
I want to
life.
be comfortable.
I can't survive with all the people around me, let alone by myself on an island in the forest.
Yeah, that is just bananas to me. I'm gonna watch it now.
Or Alone. There's like 8 seasons on Netflix.
I'm gonna do that this weekend.
We've been binging a little bit of Naked and Afraid because that show is just bonkers to me. But they've actually had several, because I mean, so many seasons of white people just doing out in the wilderness and being all.
It's wild.
But no, this season has had some black
I like
and brown
to watch
people.
them struggle. Is that messed up?
A little bit.
I think that is why the show exists. Like,
you're like, is that?
Like they signed up for it. They signed up for it.
Yeah,
they do sign up for it. They do sign up for it. I mean, no one's gonna convince me. Who comes to somebody and says, "Listen, I've got an amazing idea. Take off all your clothes, and I'm gonna drop you." I'm gonna drop you in the middle of the woods, and let's see how long you can last. What?
I have too many revealing stories to tell you, but college, Jason, college.
You're like, you'd be surprised, you know.
So many conversations started that way.
Take off all your clothes. The other thing is, I gotta bathe, right? I'm one of those people. I can't go without a bed. It's complicated. Can't do it. It's one of those things.
I won't go camping either. No, thank you.
Me neither. I'm not interested.
No, I want to just be pampered and luxuriate in fine silks. That's what I want to do.
I'm with you, Erika. Yeah.
The finest of silks. That's it.
So we still don't have any questions from the audience, but Erika and Jason, I promise they are here and watching.
Well, it's cool.
At least their numbers.
It's okay. I'm having a great time.
I have a question. This is a question I always ask, and I
Yeah.
want to ask Erika because I've asked everybody, and I mean, like, everybody has gotten this question. So I'm so curious. I should be keeping track of them to see if I can compare everyone's answers. But if you look back at your 10-year-old self, 10-year-old Erika, that little girl, what would you thank her for?
I would thank her for being so sincere. I think being really true, even though no one liked it, just sticking to it. Like, this is the person I'm going to be no matter what. And, I think a lot about Lisa Simpson because she taught me so much. She taught me to be that way, to be like, this is me, and take it or leave it.
We'll play the saxophone all night.
I wish I had a saxophone. We were too poor.
I'm playing the saxophone. I don't care if you like it or not. I'm playing this saxophone all night.
Love it. It's
amazing.
Beautiful. It's beautiful.
Lisa Simpson was 8 years old, hanging out at the jazz club. Like, Lisa was a wild
Yeah,
joint.
with Bleeding Gums Murphy.
Bleeding Gums, my man, Bleeding Gums Murphy.
Oh my god.
Arguably the greatest show of all time. Shout out to Bleeding Gums
It
Murphy.
is. We need to have like a session where we talk about The Simpsons, please.
Yo,
it's
one
of my greatest loves.
I'm OD Simpsons fan. Like, yo, there's no greater villain than Mr. Smithers.
Oh.
There's no sort of like better, boy toy and lover than what's my man? What was his right-hand man's name? Remember, it was Smithers. And
it was Mr. Burns and Mr. Smithers. Yeah.
Mr. Burns.
It was Mr. Burns. Yeah.
Mr. Burns.
Yeah, that was a really like sexual.
They had like a wild sexual relationship. Mad homoeroticism. I love it. Yo, it was great. We've never seen a psychopath. We've never seen a psychopath like Sideshow Bob.
Yeah.
And Krusty. Right. And Krusty, who was also psychopathic.
Did either of you play Bartman on Nintendo?
Of course.
Okay, I'm like, I feel like we're all about the same.
One.
And I had the Black Bart T-shirt.
Oh, you had Black Bart?
The Black Bart T-shirt.
I didn't know there was a Black Bart. That's awesome.
Yeah. If you Google Black Bart, it'll come up. The T-shirt will come up. The Black Bart T-shirt. Yo.
Although I don't know if that's appropriate for me.
Yeah, I love all of that. I thought it was what a brilliant show. Gosh.
Oh my god.
Yo,
yeah, totally it brought me a lot of.
What it's still on TV? What if they make you a Simpsons character, yo?
Dude! Oh my god! Don't even put that idea in my head.
It's possible.
I would love it so much. I also want to be on Sesame Street. How come have you been on Sesame Street? I feel like you should be on Sesame Street.
Nah, because I would do it, but we haven't figured it out. I mean, I've had conversations with them, but we haven't sorted it out. Because I would want to be on there, really on there, like as me, like just doing my thing. You know what I mean? But we haven't figured it out. We'll see.
I can't wait for this episode because my daughter watches it. And like, I really want to impress her. I just want to be like, that's mommy's friend. And then at some point that's mommy. And then she's going to like lose her shit and it'll feel really good.
The first time I met Sonia Manzano, which is their Maria from Sesame Street. The first time I was on a panel with her or something. And it was the wildest experience. One, because she's so Bronx. She's
really?
in the best possible way. She's so down to earth, but she's very much like the Bronx, very much Bronx. And she was lovely. Shout out to Sonia Manzano.
Beautiful.
She's amazing and as wonderful as
oh my god, I looked up to her.
She's the best.
Yeah, she was just I
also saw that you hung out with our buddy Sandra Cisneros. I looked at one of the videos as I was preparing for this, and I know you were in conversation with her.
Oh, that's right.
I had this craziest story.
It was. Oh, you do? I need to hear it. She's a good friend of mine. She's amazing. She's been so supportive, and it's so bizarre to be in conversation with my hero. About my book. It just doesn't even feel real. But I want. Yeah, it's really cool. It's so cool. But I want to know your crazy story.
It wasn't basically we were at an award ceremony, we're being honored. I did not know, I've never seen what she looked like. So I read her for years, but I've never seen her. And we were sitting next to each other. And I sit in the seat and I'm like, oh, and she's like, can you believe we're getting honored for this thing? And I was like, no, I can't. It's crazy, right? And she's like, it is. I'm like, I'm Jason. And she's like, oh, I'm Sandra. And I'm like, nice to meet you. And then I think Jackie Woodson sitting on the other side of me, right? And Jackie's like, that's like this is Cisneros. And then I turn back and I'm like, yo, you're Sandra Cisneros. And she's like, yeah. And then she's like, look, she gives me all of her information. So her phone number, her email. She's like, yo, come to Mexico, send me an email, call me. Yeah, all this. It was like the wildest. She's lovely. And she was so, she could not believe that she was being honored, and I could not believe that she could not believe that she was being honored. It was so interesting.
Yeah, no, she's so brilliant, and I I have so many like lovely moments with her because she is so generous with her time and with her advice. She sent me like multiple emails with touring advice, and I was like, "Damn, where have you been?" Because I could really use like an older woman friend who like
Who knows it?
knows so much. It's amazing,
She's
like
amazing.
her wealth of knowledge, and so yeah, she's great. She's great.
I just like that she couldn't get over the fact that you're from Cicero.
Oh, she was like, it's the most unpoetic place.
Oh,
How
like,
did
ooh,
you become a poet? And no, she's right. It's I'm gonna take a picture and I'm gonna send it to you, Jason, just
please
so you
do.
can just see how bleak it is. It's rough out here.
She couldn't believe it. She's like, I just don't know how you would. She's like, where did you get books? She's like, where were the books? I'm like, what?
I would.
You would steal them.
I mean, that's
heard.
a good question, and I just from everywhere I would take them, and I didn't care because you know what I said. I literally said this. I said I'm entitled to knowledge, and that was my reasoning. I'm like, I don't have money. I don't have a good library. They're mean at the library. Like I don't want to go there.
Let me ask you this, Nancy. I know we have to at some point we're gonna have to go because I can talk to you all day. What's the
Same.
one thing, and now that you have a child of your own, you have a little boy, little girl?
I'm sorry.
Do
There's
you
a
have
delay.
you have a daughter or
I have
son?
a girl, Sojourner.
Sojourner, I knew that. That's right. Sojourner.
Yeah.
What, given
Mhm.
everything you've gone through, what's like the one thing that you want her to know? Did you hear me?
I didn't. I
Oh,
didn't.
it's okay. What's the one thing you want her to know?
Oh. Oh, wow. The one thing that I want her to know. Honestly, I just want her to love herself. I think that's the most important thing. I just want her to feel safe and to know that she is amazing. And so far she seems to think so. And I love to see her move through the world with such confidence, and she feels so like at ease, and it really heals a lot for me when I see this part of her. She's just wonderful. She's already taught me a lot, and hopefully I teach her a lot as well. So it'll it'll be a give and take between us.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. I think you both deserve that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Shane, I'll give it to you, buddy.
Okay. Was that there's a quick question that came in from a messenger asking if you still lived in Cicero.
Oh no. I go there frequently to visit my parents, but it just it was not the place where I felt creatively like free or safe. So I just didn't ever want to live there again.
All right. Well, I want to thank both of you. I am such an admirer, even more so after spending this last hour with you. I want to thank the other bookstores involved, Porter Square Books, Majors and Quinn, both fantastic bookstores that are big supporters of both of your work as well. So if you are watching and don't have a favorite independent bookstore wherever you are, hopefully it's one of those, one of us 3 bookstores, but wherever you are, do support independent bookstores. And I want to, who else have I thanked? Did I thank everyone else? I don't know. There's so many people I want to thank, but just everyone watching, Jason, Erika, I want you all to have a fantastic rest of your evening and to join us again really soon for another event. And Erica and Jason, whenever you are
Yeah.
in St. Louis, we would love to have you. So let us
Love
know.
Left Bank, man. I love Left Bank. And shout out
Yeah.
to my people at Porter Square. I got love for Porter Square. I teach over there. And I haven't been to Majors and Quinn, but I'm gonna come out there and holler at y'all. And Erica, congratulations, my friend. You really are something
Thank
special.
you.
Yeah, you're special. And I'm grateful to have this time with you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And if you haven't bought the book yet,
I'm so grateful.
buy the book. Yeah.
Later, y'all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Peace, peace, peace.